Watching a prized torch coral melt away is incredibly stressful. One day the polyps are fully extended and flowing, and then the next the tentacles are severely retracting, shrinking tightly into the skeleton and refusing to open. When you see this rapid decline in a Euphyllia coral, you are generally looking at one of three distinct threats: brown jelly disease, a flatworm infestation, or parasitic copepods. To save the colony, we have to follow a strict clinical protocol. First, we will diagnose the specific threat. Then we execute an emergency physical extraction, followed by a rigorous chemical cleaning routine. Taking immediate calculated action based on the specific symptoms is the difference between losing a coral overnight and nursing it back to full health. Step 1 is visual triage. Because these threats require entirely different treatment paths, you need to perform a close inspection using a macro lens or a focused flashlight. This chart details threat markers. Brown jelly disease is identified by thick, brown slime consuming polyps top down. For Euphyllia-Eating Flatworms, check the bare skeleton for dense, brown circular egg clusters. For Tegastid Copepods, search the flesh band for tiny, erratic dark specks. Accurate identification dictates everything that follows. A misdiagnosis means applying the wrong treatment protocol, which wastes precious time while the coral continues to decay. If your diagnosis is brown jelly disease, you are dealing with a highly infectious bacterial mass. The absolute rule here is to never lift the infected coral unprotected through the display tank's water column. The standard water flow will detach the jelly and blow it directly onto your healthy corals. Instead, use an emergency extraction method. Submerge a clean, sealable plastic container directly into the tank. Maneuver the coral inside and secure the lid completely underwater before removing it. Once the coral is isolated on your workspace, begin physical debridement. Hold the skeleton under a gentle stream of cold, fresh water and use a clean, soft brush to sweep the necrotic jelly directly down the drain. If a branch is already severely compromised, you must perform mechanical resection. Using heavy-duty bone cutters, sever the skeleton at least 1 to 2 centimeters below the active disease line, discarding the infected head entirely. With the physical decay removed, you move to the chemical follow-up. Bathe the cleaned coral in an isolated antibiotic dip, such as Ciprofloxacin, for 1 to 2 hours to neutralize the remaining bacteria. Physically washing away that massive bacterial load first is strictly required. It clears the surface, allowing the targeted antibiotic bath to actually reach and protect the coral's remaining healthy tissue. If your diagnosis points to flatworms or copepods, the protocol changes. For parasites, physical extraction is always your preferred first intervention before any chemicals are mixed. Cautionary: it is incredibly dangerous to use chemical killers directly inside your display tank. Their rapid mass die-off releases a concentrated wave of biological toxins. This toxic load can quickly overwhelm your filtration and crash the entire aquarium system. Instead, use a manual siphoning technique. Connect a piece of rigid airline tubing to a flexible siphon. With the circulation pumps off, you can precisely vacuum the adult flatworms directly off the coral and filter them into a fine mesh sock. Taking the time to physically extract these pests keeps the biological threat isolated, protecting the complex balance of your display tank from a toxic cascade. After removing the visible adults, we initiate the dual-action chemical bath. For this, set up 2 distinct isolated containers of clean tank water. Bath 1 focuses on pest dislodgement. Dose a Botanical coral cleaner into the first container and submerge the coral for 10 minutes. Use a turkey baster to aggressively blow water across the tissue, which flushes out any hidden or stunned bugs. Once the 10 minutes are up, move the coral directly into bath 2. This is an iodine-based dip, where the coral will sit for another 10 minutes. The iodine dip serves a very specific structural function. As the pests feed, they leave behind jagged microlacerations in the coral's flesh. The iodine coats and sanitizes these open wounds. Stripping the pests off the skeleton only solves half the problem. Closing and cleaning those physical feeding wounds is what stops highly virulent pathogens from moving in and initiating secondary bacterial infections. It is important to know that a single round of chemical dipping will never permanently cure a flatworm or copepod infestation. Flatworm eggs are encased in a tough, chitinous envelope, making developing larvae immune to chemical dips. You must repeat the dip exactly 7 days later. This timing kills newly hatched larvae right before they reach reproductive age and lay new eggs. To supplement the chemical timeline, you should physically scrape off any visible egg clutches you find on the skeleton using a scalpel or a hard-bristled brush. Strict mathematical consistency over a 4 to 6 week period is the only guaranteed way to outlast the gestating parasites and permanently break their life cycle. Now that the coral has been sterilized and rinsed in clean salt water, place it into a dedicated quarantine system. Keep the lighting soft and the water flow gentle, allowing the delicate tissue margins the necessary time to begin to heal. To establish your final biological defense, dose a concentrated liquid probiotic bacteria directly into the quarantine water. This relies on the principle of competitive exclusion. The beneficial probiotics rapidly colonize the coral's natural mucosal barrier, leaving no vacant space for opportunistic, disease-causing bacteria to take hold. By combining rigorous physical extraction, precisely timed chemical baths, and targeted biological support, you neutralize the immediate threat and establish a permanent path back to health for your colony.